Hey guys, tonight we slip into the sun-baked world of ancient Sumer, where the air smells of river mud and ambition, and you're about to become a scribal apprentice in one of history's first cities. Picture yourself trudging through Uruk's bustling streets, sandal straps rubbing your dusty feet, as merchants haggle over barley and goats. Clay tablets, etched with wedge-shaped marks, are everywhere, stacked in corners, tucked under arms. These are the lifeblood of Sumerian bureaucracy, and you're here to master them. Fair warning, you probably won't survive the endless memorization or the cranky teachers who'd rather whack your knuckles than praise you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love picturing you all cozied up across the globe. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of a scribal school, or a dubba as the Sumerians call it. A low mud brick building that hums with the nervous energy of young students like you. It's around 3000 BCE, and Sumer cities, Uruk, Uar, Lagash, are thriving hubs of trade, religion, and power. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers cradle this land, making it fertile but chaotic, with floods and feuds keeping everyone on edge. Writing, barely a few centuries old, is the glue holding it all together. Scribes aren't just nerdy note-takers. They're the backbone of civilization, recording everything from tax receipts to temple hymns. Without them, kings lose track of their gold, and priests forget their prayers. Historians still argue whether writing emerged purely for bookkeeping or if sacred rituals sparked it. Either way, you're about to dive into its heart. The adubba smells like damp clay and sweat, with a faint whiff of sesame oil from a nearby market stall. You shuffle in, clutching a reed mat to sit on, and notice the walls lined with shelves of dried tablets, some no bigger than your palm, others heavy as a brick. Your teacher, a bearded man with a scowl that could curdle milk, barks at you to sit. He's called the Ummiyah, or expert, but you're already doubting his patience. Your first task? Not writing, oh no, that's months away. You're here to observe, to soak in the rhythm of this strange world where wedges pressed into clay mean more than gold. A quirky tidbit. Some students, desperate to skip class, would accidentally drop their tablets, claiming the dog ate their homework. Except, well, the dog was probably just a stray sniffing the clay. You glance at your fellow apprentices, a mix of boys from wealthy families and a few scrappy kids hoping to climb the social ladder. Everyone's nervous, but there's a thrill in the air, like you're all part of something bigger. The Sumerians invented writing, sure, but they also birthed bureaucracy, and you're about to learn how to keep this machine running. Your teacher drones on about the goddess Nisaba, patron of scribes, who supposedly gifted humans the stylus. You stifle a yawn, partly because it's hot, partly because you're imagining Nisaba face-palming at your shaky focus. Joke number 1. If you think your boss is tough, try dodging a Sumerian teacher's stick while reciting 600 cuneiform signs. Outside, the city hums. Donkeys bray, potters shout, and somewhere a priest chants to the moon god. You're not just learning to write. You're stepping into a role that binds this chaos together. The adubba is your proving ground, a place where mistakes are costly but success means respect. You settle onto your mat, the clay floor cool against your legs, and brace for the long road ahead. This isn't just school, it's survival, Sumerian style, and you're already wondering if you packed enough grit for the journey. You're back in the adubba, the scribal school's dusty air tickling your nose, and today you're getting your hands dirty. Literally. The teacher, that grumpy Ummiyah with the beard like a bird's nest, points you to a pile of wet clay, glistening like fresh river mud. Your job? Shape it into tablets smooth enough to hold the secrets of Sumer. This isn't just arts and crafts. It's the foundation of everything you'll do as a scribe. The clay's cool and squishy, sticking to your fingers as you knead it, and you can't help but feel a little like a kid making mud pies, except these pies will outlast empires. The mainstream fact here is that Sumerians perfected clay tablets around 3100 BCE, making them the world's first durable writing medium. Unlike papyrus, which crumbles, or wax, which melts, clay could be baked to last millennia. You grab a lump of clay, heavy as a small melon, and slap it onto a wooden board. The Ummiyah barks instructions. Not too wet, not too dry, and definitely not lumpy. You press and roll, your palms slick with river silt, aiming for a rectangle about the size of a modern phone. Though some tablets are bigger, like clunky hardcover books. The texture's tricky. Too much water and it's a gooey mess. Too little and it cracks like your dreams when the teacher glares. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes added straw to their clay for strength, like ancient rebar, though you're pretty sure the Ummiyah would smack you for calling it Mesopotamian concrete. Historians still argue whether tablet shapes varied by city. Uruks were often square, while Lagash favored rectangles, or if it was just scribal preference. The room hums with the soft thumps of clay being shaped. Your friend Enki, the kid who dropped his tablet last week, remember that stray dog excuse, is struggling, his tablet looking more like a squashed fig than a writing surface. You stifle a laugh, joke number 1. If Enki's tablet gets any uglier, the gods might mistake it for an offering and flood the city again. You focus on your own work, smoothing the surface with a flat reed tool until it's as even as the temple steps. The Ummiyah nods, a rare sign you're not totally hopeless, but he mutters about your corners being drunk. You're learning that precision matters here. A sloppy tablet means sloppy writing, and sloppy writing means angry merchants or priests. Outside, Uruk's marketplace buzzes with the clink of shells and the shouts of traders. You imagine your tablet holding their deals, barley for wool, or maybe a donkey for a pile of dates. The clay smells earthy, like the riverbank after a flood, and you're starting to respect its power. It's not just mud, it's memory, a way to trap time itself. You experiment with thickness, making one tablet thin for quick notes and another hefty for royal decrees. The Ummiyah shows you how to curve the edges slightly, so the tablet doesn't crack when it dries. It's oddly satisfying, like sculpting a tiny piece of forever. Your hands ache, and clay's caked under your nails, but there's a rhythm to it now. You're not just shaping tablets, you're shaping your place in Sumer. The Adaba feels less intimidating, though the Ummiyah's stare still makes your stomach flip. Joke number 2. If looks could kill, his glare would be a cuneiform curse etched on your soul. You set your tablets aside to dry in the sun, their surfaces gleaming like wet stone. Tomorrow you'll learn what to do with them, but for now you're proud of your little clay babies. The city's noise fades as you wipe your hands, the weight of this ancient craft settling into your bones. You're still in the Adaba, the scribal school's mud brick walls trapping the heat, and your freshly shaped clay tablets are drying outside like little sunbathing pancakes. Today, you're moving on to the next step, crafting the tool that'll turn those tablets into history. You're handed a reed, fresh from the riverbank, its green tip still damp with marsh water. Your task is to carve it into a stylus, the pen of ancient Sumer, designed to press precise wedge-shaped marks into clay. This isn't just whittling. It's creating the instrument that'll make you a scribe. The mainstream fact is that the Sumerian stylus, cut from river reeds, was the key to cuneiform, one of the earliest writing systems, developed around 3400 BCE. Those wedges, called cuneus in Latin, gave the script its name, and you're about to learn their magic. You sit cross-legged on your reed mat, the Adaba's air thick with the scent of clay and nervous sweat. The Ummiyah, your perpetually unimpressed teacher, tosses you a flint knife, its edge sharp enough to make you flinch. "Don't ruin it," he grumbles, as if you'd planned to carve a stick figure instead of a stylus. You grip the reed, its surface smooth but tough, and start slicing the tip at an angle. The goal is a triangular point, blunt enough to press clean wedges but sharp enough for detail. It's trickier than it looks. Too steep, and the stylus digs holes. Too flat, and your marks blur like a toddler's scribble. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes chewed their stylus tips to soften them, leaving tiny teeth marks. Gross, but you're tempted to try it when your cuts go wonky. Your friend Enki, still recovering from his tablet-shaping disaster, remember that squashed fig? Is hacking at his reed like it insulted his mother. You whisper, "Easy or you'll be writing with a twig," and he snorts. Joke number 1. If Enki keeps going, his stylus will look like it fought a sandstorm and lost. The Ummiyah glares, and you focus, shaving thin slivers until your stylus tip resembles a tiny chisel. You test it on a scrap of clay, pressing gently to form a wedge. It's satisfying, like popping bubble wrap, but with the weight of civilization behind it. Historians still argue whether stylus shapes varied by task, narrow ones for numbers, wider for letters, or if scribes just had personal quirks like modern pentwirlers. The Adaba hums with the soft scrape of flint on reed. Outside, Uruk's river glitters, and you imagine the marshes where these reeds grow, swaying in the breeze. You carve a second stylus, this one slimmer for delicate work, and notice how the Umia tilts his head, almost approving. Almost. You're starting to feel the rhythm of this craft, the way each tool ties you to the clay tablets you shaped last time. The stylus is an extension of you, a bridge between your thoughts and the mud. Joke number 2. If you mess this up, you'll be writing with your finger, and good luck explaining that to the king. You practice wedges, pressing straight lines and angled dashes. Each mark a tiny commitment to eternity. The clay's cool surface yields under your stylus, and you're struck by how something so simple, reed, clay, pressure, holds the power to record a merchant's debt or a god's hymn. Your hands are steadier now, though a splinter stings your thumb, a reminder that even scribes pay their dues. The Umia collects your stylus for inspection, muttering about passable work. You lean back, the Adaba's shadows lengthening, and feel a quiet pride. You're not just carving a stick, you're carving your place in Sumer's story, one wedge at a time. You're deep in the Adaba now, the Scribal school's air heavy with the scent of dried clay and the faint buzz of nervous apprentices. Your stylus, that reed you carved with all the finesse of a slightly panicked sculptor, rests in your hand, and your sun-dried tablets are stacked nearby, smooth as river stones. Today's challenge is a beast, learning cuneiform, the wedge-shaped script that's the backbone of Sumerian writing. You're not just scribbling notes. You're wrestling with a system of over 600 signs, each a tiny puzzle of lines and angles. The mainstream fact is that cuneiform, developed around 3400 BCE, was used for everything from tax records to love poems, making it one of humanity's first all-purpose scripts. You're about to find out why it's both a marvel and a headache. You sit on your reed mat, stylus clutched like a lifeline, as the Umia looms over you, his beard practically bristling with judgment. He points to a practice tablet etched with basic signs, vertical wedges for numbers, slanted ones for syllables. Memorize these, he says, dropping a list that feels longer than the Euphrates. You start with simple ones, a single wedge for one, a cluster for grain. But then come the monsters, signs with multiple meanings, like one that could mean king, sky, or god, depending on context. Your brain's already begging for a nap. A quirky tidbit. Some signs were so complex, scribes doodled simplified versions in the margins, like ancient emojis for "I give up." Historians still argue whether cuneiform's complexity slowed literacy or made scribes indispensable. You practice, pressing your stylus into a soft clay tablet, each wedge leaving a crisp, satisfying dent. The clay's cool and forgiving, but your hand shakes. Too much pressure and you gouge a hole. Too little and the mark's a ghost. Enki, your pal with the knack for chaos. Remember his twig stylus fiasco? Is muttering curses as his signs look like a drunk ant's footprints. You lean over and whisper, "At least your tablet's not crying for mercy." He grins. Joke number 1. If Enki's cuneiform gets worse, the gods might summon a flood just to erase it. The Umia shoots you a look, and you snap back to your tablet, etching the sign for barley until your wrist aches. The Adaba's walls echo with the soft tap of styluses and the occasional groan. Outside, Uruk's streets hum with traders and priests, their lives depending on the signs you're struggling to master. You're starting to see cuneiform's logic, how wedges combine like a code, but it's overwhelming. The Umia shows you a trick. Tilt the stylus slightly for cleaner angles. It helps, and your signs start looking less like abstract art. You're not just learning a script, you're learning to think like a Sumerian where every wedge carries weight. Joke number 2. If you mix up king and goat, you're not just wrong, you're starting a diplomatic incident. You pause, wiping sweat from your brow, and glance at the shelves of tablets lining the room. Each one's a story, a deal, a prayer, all trapped in clay by someone who sat where you are now. The Amia drones on about Nasaba, the scribe goddess, but you're too busy marveling at your own progress. Your tablet's covered in wobbly but legible signs, and for the first time, you feel like you might actually belong here. The city's noise fades, and the Aduba's rhythm, clay, stylus, wedges, starts to feel like home. You're not a master yet, but you're etching your way there, one shaky sign at a time. You're still hunched in the Aduba, the Scribal school's dim light casting shadows on your clay tablet, where your wobbly cuneiform signs are starting to look less like a cry for help. The air's thick with dust and the sharp tang of reeds, and your stylus feels like an old friend, even if your hand's cramping from etching barley 100 times. Now, the real grind begins. Surviving the Aduba's brutal training. This isn't just school. It's a boot camp for your brain, where strict teachers and endless drills turn you into a scribe or break you. The mainstream fact is that Sumerian Scribal schools, thriving by 2500 BCE, were elite institutions training boys and rarely girls for roles as vital as priests or generals. You're about to learn why only the toughest make it. The Amia, your teacher with the charm of a sunburned scorpion, paces the room, his stick tapping ominously. He's not here to coddle you. You're memorizing signs, hundreds of them, while reciting lists of gods, rivers, and trade goods. Miss a wedge, and he'll whack your knuckles or make you copy the same sign until your tablet's more wedge than clay. You glance at Enki, your buddy who's still haunted by his squashed fig tablet. Remember that. He's muttering signs under his breath, looking like he's bargaining with Nasaba herself to escape. You whisper, "Chin up, or you'll be reciting goat in your sleep." He smirks. Joke number 1. If Enki flunks, he'll be the best educated donkey herder in Uruk. The Aduba's routine is relentless. You wake at dawn, trudge through Uruk's muddy streets, and spend hours copying texts. A quirky tidbit. Some students scratched rude doodles on practice tablets, like ancient graffiti, only to get caught when the clay dried. Talk about eternal embarrassment. Historians still argue whether the Aduba's harsh methods built discipline or just traumatized kids into obedience. Either way, you're feeling the pressure. Your latest task is copying a hymn to Inanna, the love and war goddess, and every misplaced wedge feels like a personal insult to her. The Amia hovers, correcting your angles with a sigh that says, "Why do I bother?" You press on, the clay yielding under your stylus, each sign a small victory. Outside, the city pulses. Merchants shout, temple bells clang. But in here, it's just you, the clay, and the Amia's stick. You're starting to grasp the stakes. Scribes don't just write. They preserve Sumer's soul, from tax rolls to epic tales. The Aduba's not just teaching you signs. It's teaching you patience, precision, and a weird respect for mud. Joke number 2. If you survive this, you'll deserve a statue, probably made of clay, because that's all you can afford. Your tablet's filling up, and your signs are sharper now, though your back aches from hunching. The Amia grunts, "Adequate," and you nearly faint from the praise. You steal a moment to stretch, your fingers stained with clay like a badge of honor. The Aduba's shelves loom, packed with tablets from scribes who came before you, their wedges whispering of deals and dreams. You're not just learning a trade, you're joining a legacy. Enki's still struggling, but he flashes you a grin, and you feel a flicker of camaraderie. The Amia calls for another drill, and you grip your stylus, ready to face the next battle. Uruk's noise fades, and the Aduba's rhythm, tap, press, recite, pulls you deeper into this ancient world, where every wedge you etch is a step toward mastery. You're still in the Aduba, the Scribal school's air thick with the earthy scent of clay and the low hum of students muttering signs. Your tablets are piling up, each one a battlefield of cuneiform wedges, and your stylus is starting to feel like an extension of your hand, despite the occasional cramp. You've survived the Amia's stick, barely, and those endless drills that make your brain feel like overkneaded dough. Now you're stepping into a new role, organizing clay tablets in Sumer's first archives. This isn't just stacking mud rectangles. It's creating order in a chaotic world, ensuring records last longer than the kings who demand them. The mainstream fact is that by 2500 BCE, Sumerians developed sophisticated filing systems, with archives in temples and palaces holding thousands of tablets for taxes, trades, and laws. You're led to a dim room behind the Adaba, where shelves of mud brick and wood groan under the weight of tablets. The air's cooler here, smelling of dust and time, and you're handed a basket of freshly dried tablets, each etched with cuneiform. Your job is to sort and store them so a priest or merchant can find, say, last year's barley tax without cursing your name. The Amia points to a system. Tablets are grouped by topic, trade, temple, royal decrees, and marked with tiny symbols like ancient file labels. You notice one tablet with a smudged edge, probably from Enki's clumsy grip. Remember his squashed fig disaster. You mutter, "If you filed this, we'd lose a whole harvest." He chuckles, joke number one. Enki's filing skills might spark a riot faster than a bad omen. Sorting is tedious but weirdly soothing. You handle each tablet carefully, feeling the weight of someone's labor. A scribe like you may be long gone. A quirky tidbit. Some archives had summary tablets, like ancient spreadsheets, listing totals so nobody had to dig through 50 barley records. Historians still argue whether these archives were centralized in cities like Uruk or scattered across smaller towns. A debate that hinges on unearthed ruins. You start with trade tablets, grouping them by merchant name, your fingers brushing the cool clay. The Amia watches, grumbling about your slow pace, but you're learning to read the tiny labels. Wedges for wool, dates, or debt. It's like cracking a code, and you're secretly thrilled. The room's quiet, save for the soft clink of clay and the Amia's muttering. Outside, Uruk's river glitters, but in here, you're building a library of mud. You stack a tablet too quickly, and it nearly slips. Your heart skips, imagining the Amia's wrath. Joke number two. Drop a tablet, and you'll be scrubbing the Adaba floor with your tunic. You find a rhythm sorting by date and type, and notice how the system mirrors Sumer's obsession with order. Kings need taxes tracked. Temples need offerings logged. Your work keeps the city's pulse steady. The Amia nods, a rare sign you're not hopeless, and you feel a flicker of pride. You pause, wiping dust from your hands, and gaze at the shelves. These tablets aren't just records. They're Sumer's memory, holding stories you're only beginning to understand. Enki's sorting nearby, muttering about hating goat debt tablets. And you grin, bonded by the grind. The Adaba's lessons are sinking in, not just in your head but in your hands, your eyes, your respect for this clay-bound world. You place one last tablet, its wedges glinting in the lamplight, and realize you're not just filing. You're preserving eternity, one careful stack at a time. You're back in the Adaba, but today you're stepping out, your sandals crunching on Uruk's dusty paths as you head to a temple, your arms cradling a stack of clay tablets. The Scribal school's relentless drills and that archive room's dusty shelves, remember Enki's near disaster with the smudged tablet, have prepared you for this, recording temple offerings, the sacred heartbeat of Sumerian life. The air smells of incense and baked bread, and the temple looms ahead, its mud brick walls adorned with colorful mosaics. Your job is to etch the gifts barley, sheep, oil, offered to gods like Inanna or Enlil, ensuring divine favor and earthly order. The mainstream fact is that Sumerian temples, by 2500 BCE, were economic powerhouses, managing vast resources and relying on scribes to track every sacred transaction. You enter the temple's courtyard, where priests chant and devotees offer baskets of grain. The Amia sent you here with a warning. One wrong wedge, and you're insulting the gods. No pressure. You settle on a reed mat near a low altar, your tablet smooth from those clay-shaping days. A priest hands you a list, verbal, not written, of today's offerings. 10 jars of sesame oil, 20 sheep, a pile of dates. You press your stylus, carving wedges for numbers and goods, your hands steadier now. Enki's back at the Adaba, probably mangling another tablet. Remember his drunk Aunt Cuneiform? And you smirk, whispering to yourself, "At least I'm not cursing goats today." Joke number one. If Enki tried this, he'd offer the gods a tablet shaped like a pancake. The temple's rhythm is hypnotic, chants, the bleat of sheep, the rustle of palm fronds. A quirky tidbit. Some priests slipped extra offerings onto tablets to pad their own stores. A scam scribes like you had to catch. Historians still argue whether temple records were purely religious or doubled as political tools to control wealth. You focus, etching each item with care, your wedges crisp against the clay's soft surface. The priest peers over your shoulder, nodding, and you feel a flicker of pride. This isn't just bookkeeping. It's a ritual, tying you to the divine. The tablet's filling up, and you're struck by the weight of it. Every wedge ensures the gods are pleased. The city fed, the floods kept at bay. The sun climbs, and sweat beads on your neck, but you keep writing. The temple's wealth is staggering, granaries stuffed, herds sprawling, and you're the one making it legible. You pause to sip water from a clay cup, the coolness grounding you. Joke number 2. If you miscount the sheep, the gods might send a storm, and you're not ready to swim the Euphrates. You double-check your wedges, recalling the Ummiyah's lessons on precision. The priest adds a final offering, a silver ring for Inanna, and you etch it carefully, the stylus clicking softly. Outside, Uruk hums, but in here it's just you, the clay, and the god's watchful eyes. You finish your tablet a neat grid of wedges and hand it to the priest. He grunts approval and you exhale, realizing you've just bridged the mortal and divine. The Adaba feels far away, but its lessons pulse in every mark you've made. You glance at the temple's ziggurat, its steps climbing to the sky, and feel part of something vast. Your hands are dusty, your tablet heavy, but you're not just a scribe. You're a keeper of Sumer's sacred trust, etching order into the chaos of devotion. You're out of the temple now, the scent of incense still clinging to your tunic as you weave through Uruk's bustling marketplace, your sandals slapping against the packed earth. The sun's high, and the air's alive with shouts of merchants, the clink of shells, and the bleat of goats. You're clutching a fresh clay tablet, your stylus tucked into your belt, ready to tackle a new task, tracking trade deals in Sumer's chaotic markets. This isn't the serene temple work of etching offerings. It's fast-paced, gritty, and full of haggling. The mainstream fact is that Sumerian markets, flourishing by 2600 BCE, were economic engines, with scribes recording transactions to keep trade fare and taxes flowing to the palace. You find a shaded spot near a stall piled with barley sacks. The merchant, a wiry man with a quick smile, already waving you over. He's swapping barley for wool, and you need to log every detail. Quantities, names, debts. You need your tablet smooth, the clay cool from those shaping lessons, remember your mud pie pride, and start pressing wedges. The merchant rattles off numbers faster than you can write, and you're sweating not just from the heat. Enki's back at the Adaba, probably dodging the Ummiyah's stick. Remember his pancake tablet? And you mutter, he'd drown in this chaos. Joke number 1. If Enki tried market scribing, he'd trade his stylus for a goat and call it a day. The market's a sensory overload. Spices sting your nose, donkeys bray, and someone's frying fish nearby. A quirky tidbit. Some merchants mark their goods with clay tokens, like ancient receipts, which scribes like you replaced with tablets for accuracy. Historians still argue whether these tokens inspired cuneiform or were just a quirky side hustle. You focus, etching 50 measures of barley and 10 bundles of wool, your stylus dancing to keep up. The merchant leans in, checking your work, and you feel the pressure. Mess this up and he's out a fortune. Your wedges are sharp, though, and you're getting the hang of shorthand signs for speed, a trick the Ummiyah grudgingly taught you. A woman selling dates interrupts, demanding you record her deal next. You juggle both, your tablet a maze of wedges now, and realize scribes are the unsung heroes of this chaos. The merchant grins, tossing you a date as thanks, and you munch it, the sweetness cutting through the dust. Joke number 2. If you survive this market, you deserve a statue, probably holding a tablet because Sumerians love their paperwork. You finish the barley wool deal, double-checking your numbers, and start on the date seller's log. The clay's filling up, but you're in the zone, each wedge a tiny anchor in the market storm. You pause, wiping sweat from your brow, and glance at the stalls. Wool, grain, pottery, all tied to your work. Uruk's wealth flows through these deals, and you're the one making it last. The Aduba's lessons feel alive here, not just in your head but in the clay under your fingers. The merchant calls you back for another deal, and you grip your stylus, ready for the next wave. The market's noise wraps around you, but you're carving order out of it, one wedge at a time, proving you're more than an Aduba rookie. You're a scribe who can handle Sumer's beating heart. You're back in the quieter corners of Uruk, the market's clamor fading as you step into a temple's cool, shadowed scriptorium, your arms laden with fresh clay tablets. The air smells of myrrh and dried reeds, a stark contrast to the barley dust chaos you just left. Today, you're not logging trades or offerings. You're inscribing myths, the epic tales that Sumerians whisper to their gods and children. Your task is to etch a story, maybe the exploits of Gilgamesh or Inanna's descent, onto clay, preserving it for priests to chant under starlight. The mainstream fact is that Sumerian literature, written by 2500 BCE, includes some of the oldest known stories, like the Epic of Gilgamesh, etched on tablets to blend religion, history, and poetry. You settle on a low stool, your tablet smooth from those early shaping days. Remember your clay pie pride, and your stylus poised like a painter's brush. A priest, his robe brushing the floor, dictates the tale of Inanna's journey to the underworld, his voice a rhythmic drone. You press wedges, carving signs for goddess, darkness, 7 gates, each one a piece of the myth's magic. The Ummiyah isn't here, but Enki's back at the Aduba, probably mangling another hymn. Remember his drunk Aunt Cuneiform? You smirk, muttering, he'd turn Inanna's epic into a goat herder's nap. Joke number 1. If Enki tried myths, he'd write a saga about losing his stylus. The scriptorium's quiet, save for the soft tap of your stylus and the priest's chanting. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes sneaked personal notes into myth tablets, like, "I'm tired" in tiny wedges, a secret cry lost in the clay. Historians still argue whether these myths were purely religious or coded political propaganda for Sumer's kings. You focus, your tablet filling with the story's rhythm. Inanna shedding her jewels, facing death, rising again. The wedges flow, your hands steady despite the tale's weight. It's not just words. It's a portal to Sumer's soul, and you're the one trapping it in mud. Priest pauses, sipping water, and you stretch, your fingers tingling from the stylus's grip. The temple's walls glow with lamplight, casting flickers on your tablet. You're struck by the power of this work. Your wedges will outlive you, maybe even the temple itself. You etch a tricky sign for resurrection, double-checking its angles and feel a shiver, like Inanna's watching. Joke number 2. Mess up her story, and she might haunt your dreams with a divine complaint form. You keep going, the clay yielding like a willing listener, each wedge a beat in the myth's pulse. The priest resumes, his voice softer now, and you match his cadence, your stylus dancing through gates and gods. You finish a section, the tablet heavy with wedges, and the priest nods, his eyes glinting with approval. You're not just a scribe, you're a storyteller, weaving Sumer's dreams into eternity. The Aduba's lessons, precision, patience, shine here, but this feels bigger, like you're touching the divine. Uruk's noise is a distant hum, and the scriptorium's calm wraps you like a blanket. You set the tablet aside, its surface a map of Inanna's journey, and feel a quiet awe. You're not just etching clay, you're etching history, one mythic wedge at a time, carrying Sumer's stories into the ages. You're standing in the shadow of Uruk's palace, its towering mud-brick walls etched with images of lions and kings, the air thick with the scent of cedar and ambition. Your sandals are dusty from the trek across the city, and you're clutching a hefty clay tablet, larger than the ones you shaped in the Aduba's early days. Remember those mud pie victories? Today, you're not scribbling myths or market deals. You're inscribing royal decrees, the commands of a Sumerian king meant to echo through the ages. This is high-stakes work. Every wedge must be perfect, or you're not just failing the Ummiyah, you're defying royalty. The mainstream fact is that by 2500 BCE, Sumerian kings used scribes to record laws and proclamations on clay, creating some of the earliest legal codes, like those of Uruk, to govern cities and temples. You're ushered into a grand hall, where guards with bronze spears eye you like you might smuggle the king's lunch. A royal scribe, older and sterner than the Ummiyah, hands you a dictated decree, a new tax on barley to fund a ziggurat. You settle on a reed mat, your tablet heavy as a brick, and start pressing wedges for king, barley, measure. The clay's smooth, but the pressure's real. One wrong sign, and you're rewriting history, literally. Enki's back at the Adubba, probably dodging another drill. Remember his pancake tablet? And you mutter, he'd turn this decree into a grocery list. Joke number 1. If Enki tried this, he'd tax goats for braying too loudly. The hall's quiet, save for the rustle of robes and the soft clink of the scribe's bronze tools. A quirky tidbit. Some decrees included curses, like, "May your fields dry." For anyone who dared erase the king's words, talk about job security through divine threats. Historians still argue whether these tablets were public displays or secret palace records. A debate tied to how many Sumerians could read. You focus, your stylus carving precise wedges, each one a link in the king's chain of power. The decree's language is formal, almost poetic, and you're careful with signs for eternity and obey. Your hands steady despite the tablet's weight. The scribe watches, his silence louder than any Ummiyah rant. Uruk's bustle feels far away, but you sense the city's pulse in this work. Your tablet will shape lives. Farmers paying more, priests chanting thanks, builders stacking ziggurat bricks. You pause, flexing your cramped fingers, and notice the hall's walls, painted with scenes of kings taming rivers. It's humbling, knowing your wedges carry that same authority. Joke number 2. Mess this up, and you'll be the one hauling barley to the palace. You finish the decree, double-checking every sign, and the scribe grunts, "Passable." High praise considering the stakes. The clay's covered in neat rows, a testament to your Adubba grind. You hand over the tablet, its weight a reminder of the king's reach. The scribe points you to another decree, but for a moment you linger, gazing at the hall's grandeur. The Adubba taught you precision, but this is power, your wedges binding a city to its ruler. Uruk's noise creeps back, a distant hum of life your work sustains. You grip your stylus, ready for the next task, feeling less like a student and more like a scribe who's earning his place in Sumer's story, one royal wedge at a time. You're back in Uruk's dusty streets, the palace's grandeur behind you, but its weight still lingers as you trudge toward the Adubba with a fresh batch of tablets tucked under your arm. The sun's dipping low, painting the mud brick walls golden, and the air carries the scent of river reeds and baking bread. You've etched myths and decrees, but today you're peeling back the curtain on the scribes themselves, their place in Sumer's pecking order. You're not just a clay pusher anymore. You're starting to see how scribes wield influence, bridging kings, priests, and merchants. The mainstream fact is that by 2500 BCE, scribes were a respected class in Sumer, often from elite families, their skills granting them access to power and privilege few others enjoyed. You slip into the Adubba, the familiar smell of clay and sweat wrapping around you, and settle on your reed mat. The Ummiyah isn't lecturing today. Instead, he's gathered you and the other apprentices to discuss your future. His scowl softens as he describes scribes advising kings, managing temple wealth, even dining with nobles. You're surprised, back when you were kneading clay. Remember those mud pie days? You thought scribes were just glorified clerks. Now you're learning they're the city's memory, its voice. Enki, still haunted by his market day chaos. Remember his grocery list decree? Whispers, "Do we get fancy robes too?" You grin, joke number 1. If Enki's a noble scribe, he'll wear his tablet as a hat. The Ummiyah explains that scribes often live better than farmers or weavers, with steady food and housing. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes were so proud, they signed their tablets, like ancient bylines, hoping their names would outlive them. Historians still argue whether scribes were truly elite or just overworked middlemen, a debate fueled by their mixed roles as bureaucrats and scholars. You imagine yourself at a palace banquet, your stylus swapped for a cup of date wine, chatting with a priest about Inanna's latest hymn. It's a far cry from the Aduba's knuckle-whacking days, and you're starting to feel the weight of your role, not just in clay, but in Sumer's soul. The room's quiet, the other apprentices hanging on the Umia's words. Outside, Uruk's evening hum. Donkeys, laughter, temple bells. Feels distant, like you're in a bubble of possibility. You glance at your latest tablet, its wedges crisp from those stylus carving lessons, and realize each mark ties you to something bigger. The Umia shares a story. A scribe once saved a king from a bad trade deal by spotting a forged tablet. You're impressed, but also nervous. Precision isn't just about aesthetics. It's power. Joke number 2. Mess up a noble's tablet, and you'll be scrubbing palace floors with your pride. You lean back, the Aduba's shadows deepening, and picture your life as a scribe. Not every day will be glamorous. There'll be long hours, cranky merchants, and clay under your nails. But there's respect, purpose, maybe even a seat near the king. The Umia dismisses you, and you step outside, the city's glow softening the horizon. Enki's muttering about wanting a scribe's salary, and you chuckle, bonded by the grind. Your tablets feel heavier now, not with clay, but with potential. You're not just learning signs. You're learning to shape Sumer's story, one wedge at a time, carving a path to a life that might just echo through the ages. You're back in the Aduba, the Scribal school's familiar scent of clay and reeds grounding you as you settle onto your mat, your latest tablet gleaming from yesterday's work. The sun filters through a high window, casting soft light on the shelves of tablets you've helped organize. Remember that archive's dusty calm. Today's lesson is a rare one, peeling back a hidden layer of Sumer's scribal world. Women scribes, the unsung few who defied tradition to etch their mark on clay. This isn't the usual grind of decrees or myths. It's a glimpse into a quieter revolution. The mainstream fact is that while most Sumerian scribes around 2500 BCE were men, a small number of women, often priestesses or noble daughters, worked as scribes, recording temple accounts or literary texts. The Umia, his beard less prickly today, introduces a guest, a woman named Shulgi-simtum, a temple scribe with sharp eyes and a stylus tucked into her sash. She's here to share her craft, and the room's abuzz with curiosity. You're used to the Umia's gruff lessons, but Shulgi-simtum's presence feels different, calm, deliberate, like she's earned every wedge she carves. She describes her work at Inanna's temple, logging offerings and hymns, her tablets as precise as any man's. Enki, still recovering from his noble scribe daydreams, remember his tablet hat fantasy? Whispers, she's cooler than the Umia. You nod, joke number 1. If Enki tried her job, he'd write love poems to goats by mistake. Shulgi-simtum hands you a sample tablet, its wedges tiny and elegant, recording a hymn to Nisaba, the scribe goddess. A quirky tidbit, some women scribes use distinct stylus angles, creating a softer cuneiform style, though only experts notice the difference. Historians still argue whether these women were fully equal to male scribes or faced barriers, a debate tied to sparse records. You try copying her signs, your stylus wobbling as you mimic her precision. The clay yields, but it's humbling. Her wedges are like poetry, yours more like a rough draft. She smiles, correcting your grip, and you're struck by her patience, a contrast to the Umia's stick-waving ways. The Aduba's quieter than usual, the apprentices hanging on her words. Outside, Uruk's evening hum, merchants closing stalls, priests chanting, feels far away. Shulgi-simtum shares a story. She once caught a priest fudging offering records, saving the temple's honor with her sharp eyes. You're inspired, realizing women like her carved space in a world stacked against them. Joke number 2. Forget the Umia's stick. Shulgi-simtum's stare could straighten your wedges from across the room. You keep practicing, your tablet filling with her hymn's opening lines, and feel a spark of connection. Not just to the clay, but to her defiance of the odds. You pause, flexing your cramped hand, and glance at the Aduba's shelves, wondering how many tablets hide a woman's touch. Shulgi-simtum's visit is brief, but it shifts something in you. The Aduba's lessons, precision, endurance, take on new meaning tied to stories like hers. Enki's scribbling furiously, inspired or just scared to look lazy, and you grin, bonded by this rare moment. Uruk's glow fades outside, but in here, you're etching more than signs. You're etching respect for the women who wrote Sumer's story, their wedges a quiet rebellion in the clay. You're outside the Adaba now, standing in a sun-baked courtyard where the air smells of warm clay and distant river mud. Your tablets, etched with myths and decrees from your temple and palace stints, remember Shulgi-simtum's elegant wedges? Are stacked beside you, their surfaces glinting like polished stone. Today, you're learning a crucial step, baking those tablets to make them last centuries, maybe millennia. This isn't just cooking mud. It's turning your work into something eternal, a defense against time's erosion. The mainstream fact is that Sumerians, by 2500 BCE, fired clay tablets in kilns to harden them, ensuring records like tax logs or epics survived floods, fires, and forgetful clerks. You're guided to a low, dome-shaped kiln, its bricks radiating heat like a grumpy dragon. A potter, wiry and squinting, shows you how to stack your tablets inside, careful not to smudge the wedges you've labored over. The clay's dry but fragile, and you're nervous. One wrong move, and your Inanna hymn becomes a pile of crumbs. Enki's back at the Adaba, probably daydreaming of noble feasts. Remember his tablet had ambition? And you mutter, he'd burn his tablets to charcoal. Joke number 1. If Enki tried this, he'd invent the world's first clay cookie, inedible and cursed. You slide your tablets into the kiln, the potter muttering about heat levels like he's channeling Nisaba herself. The courtyard's quiet, save for the kiln's faint crackle and the distant hum of Uruk's markets. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes etched "do not break" on tablet edges, a desperate plea to clumsy future hands. Good luck enforcing that across 4,000 years. Historians still argue whether baking was standard for all tablets or reserved for vital records, a debate tied to unevenly fired shards in ruins. You watch the potter stoke the fire, the flames licking the kiln's mouth, and feel a mix of awe and anxiety. Your wedges, those careful signs for king or resurrection, are in there, transforming from soft clay to stone-like durability. The heat's intense, and sweat trickles down your neck, but you're glued to the process. The potter explains timing. Too short, and the tablets stay brittle. Too long, and they crack like over-baked bread. You imagine your tablet emerging, its wedges frozen forever, ready for a temple archive or a king's vault. Joke number 2. Overcook it, and you'll have to explain to the Ummiyah why your decree looks like a burnt offering. You help feed the kiln with dried reeds, the smoke stinging your eyes, and marvel at how this simple act, fire meeting clay, locks your work into history. The Adaba taught you precision, but this feels like alchemy, a bridge to the future you'll never see. You step back, the kiln's glow fading as the potter seals it to cool overnight. Your tablets are in there, baking into immortality, and you feel a quiet thrill. Uruk's evening breeze carries the scent of date palms, and you wipe your hands, clay dust mingling with sweat. The Adaba's lessons, shaping, carving, writing, culminate here, in this fiery ritual. Enki's probably back at the school, whining about sore wrists, but you're bonded by the grind, and this moment feels like yours. You glance at the kiln, its heat a promise that your wedges will outlive you, carrying Sumer's voice across the ages. You're far from the Adaba now, standing in a dusty excavation site, the air dry and sharp with the scent of earth turned over by modern hands. It's not Uruk's bustling streets, but a sun-scorched ruin, centuries piled atop your old world. Your baked tablets, those you fired to eternity, remember the kiln's dragon-like glow, are the focus today as you explore how Sumerian archives were lost and rediscovered. You're imagining yourself as a scribe whose work lies buried, only to be unearthed by curious hands millennia later. The mainstream fact is that Sumerian tablets, rediscovered in the 19th and 20th centuries at sites like Nippur and Ur, revealed cuneiform secrets, unlocking the world's oldest written records. You wander the site, your sandals crunching on loose dirt, picturing the temples and palaces where your tablets once rested. Archaeologists, not Umayyad-style taskmasters, are here, brushing away soil to reveal clay fragments. You pick up a shard. Its wedges crisp despite the ages. Maybe a tax log or a hymn you etched. The Adaba feels like a dream, and Enki's probably still back there. Botching another tablet? Remember his charcoal cookie potential? You smirk, muttering. He'd dig up his own mistakes and call it treasure. Joke number 1. If Enki were here, he'd excavate a goat debt tablet and start a museum for bad scribes. The site hums with quiet focus. Shovels clink, brushes whisper. A quirky tidbit. Some tablets were found in ancient trash heaps, tossed when archives overflowed, like Sumerians spring-cleaning their bureaucracy. Historians still argue whether these lost archives were destroyed by invasions or simply abandoned as cities fell. A debate tied to gaps in the archaeological record. You imagine your Inanna myth tablet, baked to stone, lying under a collapsed wall, waiting for a trowel to free it. You trace the shard's wedges, feeling a connection to the scribe who made them, maybe a woman like Shulgi-simtum defying norms. The clay's cool, its story warm, and you're struck by how your work outlived Sumer itself. An archaeologist shows you a reconstructed archive, tablets sorted like your old Adaba shelves, but now they're relics in a tent, labeled with strange modern tags. You're awed by the journey. Your clay, once soft under your stylus, now speaks to people who don't know Nisaba or ziggurats. Joke number 2. If you told the Umayyad his tablets would be museum stars, he'd demand a cut of the ticket sales. You linger, picturing Uruk's fall, its archives buried under silt and time, only to be reborn here. The Adaba taught you to write. This teaches you legacy. Your wedges weren't just for kings or priests, but for a future you couldn't imagine. You set the shard down, the site's dust settling on your hands like a faint echo of clay. Uruk's gone, but its voice lives in these tablets, carried by scribes like you. Enki's ghost might be chuckling somewhere, but you feel a quiet pride, bonded to every scribe whose work survived. The sun dips, casting long shadows over the ruins, and you step back, the excavation's hum fading. You're not just a scribe anymore. You're part of a story that's still being told, one wedge at a time, unearthed from the earth's patient embrace. You're no longer in the excavation site's dusty sprawl, nor the Adaba's clay-scented confines. You're in a quiet, timeless space, the air soft with the hum of memory and the faint rustle of reeds by an ancient river. Your journey as a Sumerian scribe, shaping tablets, carving wedges, baking eternity, remember the kiln's fiery promise, has led you here to reflect on the legacy of those who etched Sumer's soul into clay. You're holding a tablet, its wedges glowing under a starry sky, and you're pondering how your work, and that of countless scribes, shaped the world beyond Uruk's walls. The mainstream fact is that Sumerian scribes, active by 3000 BCE, laid the foundation for written language, influencing scripts across Mesopotamia and beyond, from Akkadian to Babylonian. You sit by the Euphrates, its waters lapping gently, and trace the tablet's signs. Maybe a hymn, a law, or a simple barley count. Each wedge is a whisper from scribes like you, from Shulgi-simtum's deft hands to Enki's chaotic tries. Remember his goat debt museum dreams. Their work didn't just serve kings or gods. It birthed a way to capture thought, to make the fleeting permanent. A quirky tidbit. Some scribes etched playful riddles on tablets, like ancient Easter eggs, hoping future readers would smile. Historians still argue whether cuneiform spread was deliberate, through trade and conquest, or a happy accident of cultural mingling. You feel the weight of their legacy, not in clay, but in the idea that your wedges still speak, in museums, in scholars' hands. The night's calm, Uruk's bustle a distant echo. You imagine your tablets, baked to stone, lying in archives or unearthed in ruins, telling stories of taxes, myths, or quiet defiance. The Adaba's lessons, precision, patience, grit, wove you into this tapestry, and you're proud, even if your hands still ache from Stylus cramps. Joke number 1. If Enki's here, he's probably carving a riddle about why goats hate paperwork. You set the tablet down, its wedges catching moonlight, and feel a kinship with every scribe who pressed mud into meaning. Their work, your work, is why we know Sumer's heart. Its gods, its deals, its dreams. Joke number 2. Tell the Amia his stick-inspired civilization, and he'd demand a ziggurat named after him. You lean back, the river's murmur blending with your thoughts, and sense the scribe's gift. They didn't just write, they built a bridge across time. Your journeys taught you this. Every wedge was a step toward forever, a spark that lit the world's voice. The stars twinkle, and you're ready to rest. Your story etched not just in clay, but in the quiet pride of carrying their flame. Now, let's ease you into sleep, the river's gentle lap fading like a lullaby. You're no longer holding that tablet. Your hands are light, your breath slow, the night wrapping you in its soft embrace. The scribe's wedges, those sharp little marks, blur into the stars above, each one a story that's carried Sumer through millennia, safe in the earth's keeping. You don't need to etch anything now. Clay's at rest, the stylus still, the adubas hum a distant memory. Feel the cool breeze, the river's whisper, guiding you to a place where time doesn't press, where your worries dissolve like dust in the wind. You've walked with scribes, felt their craft, their quiet power, and now you can drift, knowing their work endures, steady as the Euphrates flow. Let your eyes grow heavy, your thoughts soften, sinking into the calm of a world held in clay, in wedges, in dreams. Sleep well, carried by the scribe's timeless song, into a peaceful, starlit rest.